And let's come back to the UK. Now, you've mentioned Democracy Next before, but let's have a look at them again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I mean, it's just interesting you there talking about this being a pivotal year. A pivotal year. I think it's a pivotal year. Goodness me, that's difficult to say for some reason today. For humanity, actually, and not least to do with democracy, the democratic process, the voice of the people, and for people who are looking to undermine the voice of the people and the democratic process. And as you say, we've talked about an organisation called DemocracyNext before. It is a non-partisan, aka uniparty, non-profit, which means it's backed by billionaires, and their state, including the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, their stated aim is to move us into a new democratic paradigm. So we're going to move from a paradigm of elected representatives and parliaments, elections and voting, which they say delivers polarization and confrontation. And they want to move to the next democratic paradigm of citizen representatives and permanent citizens' assemblies, representation by sortition, which they say will deliver broad consensus and common ground. Now, we know this is wide open to abuse by virtue of who convenes and controls the information going into the assembly that informs the decision-making process. Absolutely crucial question. And to give you a little bit of insight into that, beyond the Soros and Rockefeller foundations that we've already spoken about, we can look to the founder of Democracy Next, Claudia Chwalisz, who is a French woman and also an Obama leader for Europe at the Obama Foundation. So that means that Obama, who invaded 7 countries during his 2 presidential terms, believes that Ms. Chwalisz has demonstrated a commitment to advancing the common good. And actually, let's hear from Obama as we head into this crucial election year.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
Is that a warning or is that a playbook? I'm not sure. But citizens' assemblies are going to be front and center in how the democratic process develops this year. They're already being used in Ireland. We've talked about that previously on the news, and they are beginning to raise their head across the UK. William Hague is a fan. He wrote about them in the Times on Christmas Day. He is encouraged that somewhere in this gathering darkness of hatred, lies, and opposing cultural identities, as Obama's just described, there are open-minded and constructive citizens willing to turn on a light. Thank goodness for open-minded, constructive citizens like William Hague, willing to cut through partisan politics, hatred and lies. Hague, often seen recently working closely with his former political adversary, Tony Blair, on important issues such as science, the single issue all our dreams depend on, as well as getting together in person with Blair to do that funny hand thing that they like to do together as well. Now, naturally, all of this is being linked into climate action. Climate action. Remember COP? How great was that? Yeah, we're going to reach an even more fevered pitch on the climate this year. We can see here scientific journal of record Nature doing its part to reduce collective expectations about future prosperity. They say that citizens' assemblies could be set up with mandates to formulate socially acceptable sufficiency strategies. God, that sounds depressing. And strengthen policies, i.e. give more power to government. These would be based on ecological limits, fairness, and well-being for all, and include a stronger role for trade unions. So far, so communist. Nesta, who we've spoken about many, many, many times in the past on UK Column, the UK Social Impact Innovation Lab, which was set up by Tony Blair in 1998, and it now owns the Behavioural Insights team, the Nudge unit, that is owned by Nesta. They are actively promoting citizens' assemblies and sortition, specifically as it relates to climate action. So this is coming out from the centre, but it's already playing out in frontline politics. So Oliver Coppard, Mayor of South Yorkshire, can be seen here breathlessly describing a recent assembly used to inform decisions about net zero policies in God's own country, Yorkshire itself, as unlike any room I've ever been in. Goodness me, that sounds exciting. And it's also being used at the other end of the country as well to answer the same net zero questions by Cornwall Council. This letter was sent in by UK Column viewer Andrew Harry. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing this with us. This is for a residents' energy panel, which is the same principle ultimately as the Citizens' Assembly. This is being run by the Sortition Foundation, who are very closely linked to Democracy Next. This time it's with 50 citizens. They're being offered 375 quid each to participate. And the panel, as it says here, will follow an established democratic engagement process that is used all over the world. It brings together a group of people selected by lottery who broadly represent the entire community. The people who attend learn about the issues, discuss them with one another, and then make recommendations about what should happen and how things should change. But all of this, of course, is based on an a priori assumption that we are already going to transition to net zero, right? So that's the context within which decision making is being made. We talked a little bit about the UK, but this is an international movement. Democracy Next is an international organisation, and it's deeply embedded into emerging technology. So we're starting to see this alignment between democracy and technology, which is frankly terrifying. Just before Christmas, Democracy Next announced a strategic partnership with the Centre for Constructive Communication at MIT Media Lab, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And in their announcement, they said that their aim is to harness powerful AI technologies to create constructive, tech-enhanced and human-led systems shaped by the proven model of citizens' assemblies worldwide. Right? This is a proven model, apparently. Now, it's worth noting, given how the show started, that Joy Ito, formerly Dean of MIT Media Lab and a board director of the New York Times, was forced to resign his positions in 2019 for soliciting funds from Jeffrey Epstein for MIT and his own personal investment funds after Epstein had been released from jail for child sex crimes, worth noting. And it's also worth noting where all of this could potentially end up. If we fuse democracy and technology, democracy and artificial intelligence, and we get the right level of public acceptance, it's entirely possible that they may no longer see any need to consult with citizens at all.
You had a little bit of video, Ben?
Yeah, please run the video.
Yeah.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
2024.
Brilliant. Okay.